Yes, Andy, Chelsea have done it. They have won the Europa Conference League and become the very first club to win all 3 European trophies after scoring 4 goals in their second half. In their 57th game, I think they said in commentary, an astonishing amount of teams they've had to face this season, but they do have an astonishingly strange, youthful and vast side. So if anyone could do it, Andy, they could.
Yeah, I think so. And you know what? 57 is an awful amount of games until you consider, as I did earlier today, I thought AFC Wimbledon had played 53 games this season,
right,
but I'd forgot the Virtu Motors Trophy ones.
Of course.
So we also played 57, and our 57th game involved winning a trophy as well.
Good
although
point. Very, very good point. Where does it sort of stand on winning a playoff final at Wembley or winning the Europa Conference League where they won it?
I'll tell you, it's much easier to be in Nando's an hour later, I reckon, from Wembley than Wroclaw. But it is a very elegant trophy. At the moment, we're getting Sheffield, as we're speaking, handing over the medals, which hopefully won't run out, and doing the awkward, I'm really cool,
I'm your friend.
Brother hug.
I can hang out with that show speedy shouts.
Don't do that.
Yeah. But I mean, it was an astonishingly game of two halvesy kind of game, wasn't it, Andy? Because Real Betis were all over Chelsea. They controlled it. In the point in which Chelsea were approaching the final third, the discipline of the formation of Real Betis, they just seemed to move all as one around the pitch. It was incredible to see.
They were really well coached, Pete. You're absolutely right, which says a lot for Manuel Pellegrini and really how he's transformed the club since he's been there. Often with like quite strict budgetary constraints as well. Now, obviously, we know they did quite well out of this winter transfer window, particularly with Anthony, who, unfortunately for them, didn't have his best game tonight. But I don't know about you, I thought really when I saw them playing this first half, and what a great first half, is there's no way they're going to be able to keep this up in the second half. No. And really that's what it turned out to be, wasn't it? That they almost gave a bit too much in that first half. And so not only did Chelsea, who started really sluggishly, have plenty left in the tank, but they had plenty left on the bench as well. And they made the right changes. Now, I think Marcus said on our WhatsApp group, the quality of this game was so much better than the Europa League final, and I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I think he's absolutely hit the nail on the head there. But having said that, I think if you're looking for a reason why English clubs will dominate, particularly the Europa League and the Conference League in coming seasons, like this is it. Yeah. Like the level of resources is so different. I mean, it's great that a team like Betis got to the final, A, because it's new for them, and B, because they were capable of giving Chelsea a game. It's just the way they approached it. They weren't capable of giving them a game for the whole 90 minutes, probably about an hour, would you say? Yeah,
I mean, I was all ready to write reams and reams of notes on Isco's performance. Now, I know he's 33, but his physicality was very much apparent in the first half. And it wasn't that long ago that people were sort of saying that he was baked, he was on a poorly administrated vegan diet, so his conditioning wasn't there. He was out of contract, or he's certainly without a club for a while. He almost signed for Union Berlin, and now he's back in the middle, and he's back in the Spain squad on form, which has been quite a turnaround at his age. But he couldn't keep it up for more than about 60 minutes.
No, you're right, and I think that's absolutely the right point to make. Not just that he's such a gifted player, but he is such a physical player. If you think in those Zidane Madrid teams that won the 3 successive Champions League, particularly in the one where they won the final in Cardiff, he was arguably their best player in that run, particularly in the back end of that. And it's because he sort of played as quite a defensive number 10. Now, Zidane's quite a defensive coach, but I think the amount he was prepared to do off the ball as well as on it was indicative there, and it was completely key to what Real Madrid were doing at the time. Now, you're right, he's a little bit older now, so maybe he couldn't keep it up. Maybe it was because it was the fact it was against Chelsea, who, whatever you think of how the side was assembled, are a young side. They're very athletic. Good positive for them, of course, getting through this, finishing this season in this way. But I think that's really it in a nutshell. This was there was plenty in this game to make us excited. Right up, as long as Chelsea could keep it at a reasonable distance before Betis got worn out, really. Because I don't know, like if Betis had got that second goal in the first half, which I don't think was beyond them by any means at all, and I think the way that not only Reece James replaced Malo Gusto at half time, which was the change I think we all called, but the fact that Ez Abde wasn't able to carry on for much after half time, that was a huge problem. Because obviously he had Gusto on toast in the first half. It
was a beautiful. It was a very well worked goal, I think, for Abde's opener in the 9th minute. He got out of his feet beautifully, just lashing it home for 1-0, and they were kind of in control for the next 40 odd minutes. But then second half we had a goal from Enzo. Beautiful. I mean, there'll be a lot said about Sancho's and Casado's as well goal to make it 3 and 4-1. But for me, the pick of it was definitely Enzo's 2 attending defenders, 5'8", getting his headers in. Oh, it was and a beautiful pass from Cole Palmer, who turned up at a really important time for his club.
Yeah, he was fantastic, Palmer, and I think. That's it. It really impressed me. I think if you go back a couple of weeks after the Liverpool game where he scored his first goal in absolutely ages, and he didn't try to duck the fact that he'd had a lean spell, but he didn't blame it on anyone else. But he was just part of life, isn't it? He wore it quite well, and I think. That the lack of drama that he brought to it, he didn't make a drama out of a crisis, as they used to say in insurance adverts in the 90s. I think that was really important. And there, they just, as they were getting the upper hand, especially physically, Chelsea, just that extra bit of quality, that clear head. And those assists were everything they needed, really. I mean, it nearly ended up making Nicholas Jackson the hero of the hour, though it's quite strange with Jackson. I always feel a little bit protected of him because I know he's mocked by a lot of supporters, which I think is quite unfair. I think there's a potential to be a really great footballer in there, that he's just not quite arrived at that point yet. Probably partly because he's surrounded by young players everywhere, and there's maybe not that experience to guide him. I mean, I wonder if Chelsea invested in a more experienced striker, that would help him develop as well. And it was almost the ultimate Nicholas Jackson game. He scores the goal despite having a pretty average game that could have ended up winning them the game if there wasn't that bit of garnish added at the end. And then he gets a chance to make it 3-1 and gives away that chance with the most horrendous touch. And the thing is, people go, "Oh yeah, this is why it shouldn't be Chelsea starting centre forward." But you know what? I think people have got really short memories because, as I always say repeatedly, last impressions last in football. If you think of Didier Drogba, who's absolutely untouchable as a Chelsea and Premier League legend. His first two seasons were very quiet, very, very inconsistent. And, he could look like the best player in the world 1 minute and honestly like a park player the next. So I'm not saying Jackson could quite get to that level, but because that's a lot to ask. But, I think he can be a really important player for Chelsea for years to come.
Would you say that, I mean, I guess now the season's over, we're obviously better placed to judge where Chelsea are as a squad, but they do have these incredibly gifted young footballers, but you get the feeling that they're an off-field concern rather than an on-field concern. They are being held on the off chance they become the next Cristiano Ronaldo. They're not generally sort of there to build for the future on the field. They are very much kind of held as a bargaining, an escrow kind of a little bit in a database, I suppose. But that's my sense that's why these young players are there, and I do hope, like you say, I do hope they do bring in some more experienced footballers, because they just to give these young players a little bit of just a blueprint to look at, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's kind of like Leipzig on a bigger scale, really. You know, they wouldn't sign players who are over 25, really, for quite a long time. Now, they changed that. Well, they changed that in terms of the amount of money they were prepared to spend, but the big money they've spent has still generally been on younger players. So they went out and spent 80 million on Xavi Simons to make his deal permanent this season or whatever. But the way that Leipzig have got experienced players is the players who've joined young and stayed around for a bit. So when they've got to Willi Orban level or Emil Forsberg level, it's because they've stayed there for a really long time. And I kind of wonder if that's what will happen with Chelsea. And I guess you've got to look at Reece James, although there are fitness questions, Levi Colwill, maybe Chalobah, players like that come young and then develop into the leaders, or indeed Enzo and Caicedo. But I think you look at that, and obviously it is a different scale. So it's a slightly imperfect comparison. I think it's fair to say, and there's like far greater sums of money involved. But I agree with you. I think you do have to go there, especially when you've got the pressure of winning as Chelsea have, and get those experienced players, just because there comes a point you reach a ceiling quite quickly. Surprisingly quickly, and I think that's especially easy to do in the Premier League, where there's just such an incredible amount of competition at the moment. So, you know, if you think Chelsea go into that last game of the season and it's all turned out right for them, but really they're 10 good minutes from Nottingham Forest away from, you know, just being back in the Europa League through this.
Yeah.
So,
and 45 minutes in the second half here of coming away with very little indeed. I mean, they started the match with Cucurella being the oldest Chelsea player on the pitch. He's 26. Now, that doesn't feel right to me, Andy. It feels like he's a 32-year-old, because he's been moved around a little bit, and he's obviously cemented his place in this Chelsea side. He went for a bit of money, and I didn't realise he was 26.
For me, Pete, it's more the feeling... Yeah, same. It's more the feeling that he's been grating on me for a really long time. Only 26. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But obviously, like the fact that he is a very good defender, B, a winner, and C, the fact that he just never stops yapping. I mean, it's so objectionable. Even at the end, when they won the game and you could just hear him rabbiting away for a yellow card. And it's just like, someone like that, you need your Jamie Vardy, don't you? Yeah. Someone who's really irritating, probably to his own teammates a lot of the time, but just gets under the skin of the They're usually
up top
opposition.
Order in goal, really. You can't really have a player playing where he's playing. It's worth sort of pointing out that, I mean, we could talk about Palmer, we could talk about how the Reece James appearance obviously changed things for Chelsea, but this is, of course, Enzo Maresca's first trophy at Chelsea. Chelsea are the first non-Spanish team to beat a Spanish team in a European final since 2001. The Spanish teams are obviously imperious at this stage in a lot of the competitions. His substitutions transformed Chelsea's fortunes.
They did.
After starting the game with a couple of surprises in there.
Yeah, they did, and I guess the big one was Reece James, and you felt from quite an early stage, and I guess it was because of the Gusto Ezabde face off that was only going in one direction. That Reece James can teach this guy some manners, basically. Yeah. But because he's not just like one of Chelsea's best players when he's fit. He's so physical. He's so strong as well. Reece James is just one of my favourite players. I think honestly he'd be one of the top 20 in the world if he was fit all the time, because he can do a job for you in midfield, right back, wherever, and he's just such a natural leader. So I guess maybe that's why they left it till half time. I mean, I was saying to you earlier, I thought they could have made that sub after 25 minutes, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about before, I guess, that luxury of being able to bring those players off the bench, being able to bring on Dewsbury Hall and Sancho when Betis are flagging and really struggling to stand up with sort of 25 minutes to go. I mean, look, I always love to see a Jadon Sancho goal. Again, one of my absolute favourites still. Whatever happens to him next, and it's very hard to figure out where he's going to play next season, I think, at the moment. But I think what was indicative of where the two teams are at is the pass. The initial run by Dewsbury Hall is really good. And then he doesn't get off the pass as he would like. But Sabali is so knackered. We've all been there in five-a-side, where just your body shape is all over the shot because you're just knackered and you need a breath. And he couldn't get himself in the spot. It sort of ended up going through his legs, and then Sancho cleaned up and made it look great afterwards. But that really defined the difference. And I think it's interesting to know about the relationship between Maresca and Pellegrini as well, because Pellegrini was his coach at Betis for a year, and he sort of said to him, like, "You're a pretty cerebral bloke. Why don't you do your badges?" And he's like, "Oh, okay, hadn't thought about that." Which is really quite interesting, and obviously it's you could say come back to bite him. Look, maybe Chelsea would have been in this position with another coach and won anyway. But
exactly. I mean, with that squad, you imagine with those legs in the side, you imagine that Chelsea probably had it in the second half anyway. But Maresca, playing the whole kind of, he's my football dad. He's my fucking old football dad. It was a lovely turn. Joe Cole,
slight twist of Pardew, that, isn't it?
It was a little bit. Yeah. Joe Cole said at the end, "There's a moment where you fall in love with your missus." And I hope it's tonight with this team for these fans. So I mean, quite kind of confusing, but an astonishing way to.
That makes it sound like you've been on several unsatisfying dates, but you've stuck with it.
It's a moment. I mean, I hope it's at the start, Joe.
Maybe it was the other way around, Joe.
Exactly. I mean, the highlight for me was very much, apart from a lot of the TNT reporters having to wear sort of armbands that basically...
I'm well into that.
You into that?
Well into
you having that?
Yeah.
It seems kind of weird.
We saw Becky Ives with one when she was speaking to Cole Palmer and Reece James that said Wroclaw final 2025. Jules had one at the Europa League final as well.
She's so tiny, can fit around her head.
Yeah, maybe. But I love that captain of interviewing vibe.
Yes,
it's kind of
exactly.
I was saying to you, it's a little bit like in Portugal, how the head coach or manager has to wear an armband saying Treinador, which is coach.
I like that.
I love that.
Can I have one?
Yeah.
Can I? I've never worn for obvious reasons on the football field. I am not called up to be the captain at any point. And I always think men who really get excited about wearing captain's armbands in 11-a-side matches on a Sunday afternoon are weak individuals, personally. But I've never been told that I'm allowed.
Just say what you want for Christmas. Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
I just want an armband that says I'm important.
I'll tell you what. Next time I go to Germany, you're in luck, because as well as selling Bath Ducks novelty toasters that play the club anthem, the other staple of a Bundesliga club shop is the captain's armband.
Is the captain's armband?
Yes.
That's Captain. Lovely.
Just tell me where you want it from.
Big fan of that. Well, I'll tell you what. Well, I mean, I think it'll set off my brand new half light blue, half pink haircut that I'm definitely going to go for. Aitor Rival had gone with an astonishing choice. He doesn't usually have this, does he? He went for basically, do you know those crap buckets of candy floss you get on Southend Pier, which I live next to, so I have access to candy floss like this I could go out now and get some. And he went for it's literally just like candy floss that you get in a little pot that's half bright blue and bright pink, and it never works. Novelty haircuts never work, do they, Andy?
No, and the minute he's coming on with that haircut on, it's like you're going to be in HD in tears with that haircut, having lost at the end of the match.
Not worth you ruining your bath. Not exactly in your shower, is it?
Exactly. They're all there. And I remember like a Wimbledon player, Scott Wagstaff, after Wimbledon beat Pellegrini's West Ham, actually, for the next round against Millwall, dyeing his beard yellow and blue. I believe there might have been some charity element as well. But you could tell it just wasn't going to happen as soon as that. They're all there thinking, I'm Ronaldo in the 2002 World Cup final.
Yes, exactly.
But you're not. No one's Ronaldo in the 2002 World Cup final.
You kind of have to continue that right throughout your career. Like we were talking about Jibril Cisse's final match.
Yes,
and he was DJing his own thing. But he's always had like the crazy beards, Abel Javier style stuff. He's always had that. So you're allowed to piss about if you've always pissed about, but you're not allowed to do it if you've never done it before.
Yeah, exactly. Look. Cisse's one of one. I think we can say. I mean, he's even got a leopard skin shoulder tattoo. That's how committed he is to it. But I mean, only Jibril Cisse could get away with DJing at his own testimonial.
He's the Earl of Frodsham.
In socks as well.
He's the Earl of Frodsham. I think he had a hype man as well, doing a bit of rapping.
He did. You got to love that. He assisted a goal for one of his sons as well, didn't he?
Oh, big fan of that.
In that, I mean, honestly, he ticked every box. Like, if you think your testimonial was good, it wasn't compared to his. It just wasn't.
I don't think we get them on the Ramble. just thrown out for bad behaviour, never mentioned again. Obviously, coming into this match, the big talk was Antony's astonishingly good season after leaving absolute mad Manchester United, heading out to Real Betis and just having a bloody good time. But he was kept very, very quiet indeed. Chelsea marked him out the game. He tried to headbutt Enzo Fernandez on the floor at the end of the game.
Yeah.
It was all going off like a frog in a sock.
It really was. And you know what? Someone came up to me after one of the Ramble live shows recently and said, I really love your work, but could you please be nicer about Manchester United? And I was like, I said to him, well,
charity begins at home, brother.
They really need to help me out here. Before we get to the bus parade, while they're on tour at the moment.
On tour in Malaysia, headed straight from KL Airport, headed straight onto the streets on a celebratory bus. The show isn't obviously about Manchester United, but let's face it, their poor work in the transfer market touches so many teams these days. We obviously had Jadon Sancho winning on the winning side, and obviously, Real Betis' loan player Antony hopefully going to be sticking around. There's rumours that certain players will be trying to kidnap Antony.
That's right. Isco and Joaquin both said, we want to keep him. We'll work together to kidnap him. All the rest of it, which was quite nice. But I don't know. I think from a United perspective, if they're really hoping to raise funds from players they don't want anymore, it's like the worst case scenario, really, because as you say, he had a terrific second half of the season for Betis. Really, really good in La Liga as well. Looked like better than the player that they thought they were buying. Yeah. I thought he was outstanding. Turned up in the big matches, goals, assists, etc., etc., etc. Excited the fans, and they really needed someone to replace Nabil Fekir after he went as well. And then he just doesn't turn up for the final, which is obviously going to lead people to think, yeah, well, maybe this is why it didn't work at United, which is really unfair to like judge him on that one game. But when you're someone who's cost a substantial chunk of change, that is what people are going to look at. And it was quite interesting seeing him and Jadon Sancho having a cuddle and a little chat at the end. It's like, we're not going back there, are we, mate?
Please don't make us go back.
We're not going back there. But the thing is, obviously United don't want them to go back, but it feels to me that both of them are kind of unsellable at the moment. I mean, we expect Chelsea to pay that $5 million so they don't have to action the obligatory purchase clause for Jadon Sancho. And look, great little cameos it was tonight. I doubt that will change things really. They probably feel they could use the money better elsewhere.
Yeah.
Those are two guys, particularly Sancho, who are on enormous wages. I think you look at those two, you look at Rashford, they're not easy to sell. They're really not easy to sell. They're players that, all three of them, we know that they're players of really high quality. But do they really convince you to make that big investment in them? Honestly, I think Anthony gets loaned back to Betis next season, and they try and get him to spend another season. They're just pumping up his value. Really, they've got to make him a value, because at the moment, I don't know what you get if you sold him to. He's worth more to Betis than he is to anyone else, and they haven't really got any money.
What they need is an anti Netflix documentary. Apparently Netflix are apparently putting together not only a Ronaldinho documentary, possibly a biopic, which I'm absolutely into. And they're also doing a Neymar documentary. At least Anthony made the Brazil squad, I suppose. I mean, weird little we turn up for the books. Not something that's been widely discussed, unless you've been on the Chelsea Reddit forums or something. By winning the Conference League, Chelsea actually have a choice if they want to enter the Europa League or the Champions League, which I think is charming.
Interesting.
So, which one would you go for? Do you feel like you can make that step up the Champions League with that very, very young squad? Have they got the experience? Would being absolutely hosed in a however many 50 team league be a great thing for those players? Or would it be nice to win the Europa League and just make that step up every single year? I think we all know what they'll choose, but I'm a dreamer.
Tough choice.
It is.
Tough choice. It really is. But you know, like Maresca's a great football thinker. So let's not try and preempt him.
It's a good point. And he deserves his win tonight. Looking further afield, obviously we've got a close season and the Club World Cup and all that business to get through. But Chelsea have got some transfer targets in their sights. They do love signing players. They're looking for a striker and a right-footed left winger, apparently, and a centre-back, and anyone else who's hopefully a little bit older than the ones they've got. Liam Delap has reportedly been given the green light for a move to Chelsea. I think Man United were in for them, for Liam Delap, weren't they? I think there was...
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of that this summer, isn't there?
There's going to be a lot of gazumping. And like we said, Jadon Sancho's future isn't clear. Where are the major kind of like areas? I know they've just won a major competition in Europe, and obviously they finished really well in the league, all things considered, with a bit of patchy form going into the final weeks. Where do they need to strengthen? Where do they need goals? Do they need centre backs, like we say?
I think it's pretty simple. Goalkeeper, at least one centre back, and centre forward. Really. As I said before, if they're going to sign Delap, I would like them to get someone experienced as well. I think that would really benefit them. I don't know if that just doesn't fit with the model, and that they're not going to do that though. I think that they've got a lot of centre backs, but not a lot of centre backs that I completely 100% believe in.
Yeah.
And well, you could say that times 10 for the goalkeepers, really, couldn't you?
Yeah.
So they just need to go out there, and it seems obvious that they need to go out there and just get a little bit of experience. But I don't know if they're taking the model beyond its natural conclusion, really.
Considers in the middle of the field, and he's 23, and he's played every single minute, I think, of the Premier League season, or certainly started every single match.
But he's brilliant. Is the difference? Whereas none of their goalkeepers are. And I think part of the reason that we have this a lot of people have this quite unflattering view of Nicholas Jackson is just he's had too much put on his shoulders. Really, if he'd have played half the games or 2/3 of the games that he actually has, people would be talking about him as a young striker of great promise.
It's Rasmus Højlund at Manchester United. Just got no one to play up with. No one's giving him the ball. Oh, dear. I completely agree, Andy. completely agree.
There you go. Spend all your money on Marcus Rashford. There's our advice. It's not our money.
His wonky shoulder. Yeah. These players that Manchester United are kind of like, shipping around that, like you say, they're going to be very difficult to shift. It's not just the ticket price. It's not just the price of entry. It's the insurance. It's the running costs.
For what it's worth, while we're on that, this will never happen. But I think Chelsea could make a worse signing than Harry Maguire.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
I think he'd be pretty. I think he'd be pretty good for them. If you
closer to Marcus
mind,
to watch, Marcus could just stroll down the hill.
He'd love
Stamford
that.
Bridge to watch him.
We're always thinking of you, Spells. We're always thinking of you. I think he'd. If Chelsea go into games with a back three, he would be great there. Honestly, because they have much better players than Man United.
Yeah,
I think he'd do really well there. It's that United thing, isn't it, of being surrounded by unflattering company or systems.
Yeah,
but there you go. They might end up go out and getting Garnacho and Mainu, one of whom I would far rather have than the other if I was Chelsea.
Right, okay. That would be Manu, presumably.
Yes, that would be Manu.